One of the things about speaking, I was thinking earlier today, it's kind of a little bit like golf. You play a few times a year, and you have some good shots, and you're like, I like golf, and so you keep playing golf. But then when you watch the pros play golf, you realize, actually, I'm a pretty average golfer. In fact, maybe even a poor golfer. And I think speaking can be that way too. You've had enough wins where you're like, yeah, I can do that. But if you only do it maybe once a year, you're like, you're going to 3-putt every once in a while, 4-putt, you're going to shank it you're going to hit it off the tee and not get it past the boxes every once in a while. So bear with me as I have not done this in quite a long time, but hopefully we'll hit some straight drives down the fairway from time to time. There's a bit of PowerPoint, there's a bit of reading, there's a bit of extraneous, let's just see where the conversation goes, with the main goal of keeping us in time. I have been a college professor. I have been described a little bit as verbose or long-winded, so that's just sort of the nature of being a glutton for learning and education and talking to students most of your life. So we'll just make a start right away. I'm going to be talking about this title, Doing God's Business, Lessons in Leadership Change and the Impact of Gospel Patrons. And as I start, I want you all just to take a mental hypothesis, a mental note, and hold this thought in your mind for the next 30 minutes or so. How does this apply to my life, my work, or my spiritual journey? So good morning. Thank you for being here today, and a special thank you to the Birmingham Country Club staff for serving us this morning. Special hand clap to those guys. Appreciate them. As Adrian said, to Teresa Anderson, Executive Director of CBRT, her team, organizing events across the state of Michigan and beyond, and to our host and my friend, Adrian Keogh, who introduced me to CBRT a few years ago. Thanks, Adrian. My name is Adam Barron. I am the COO and second in command of Send International USA, which is a 78-year-old story-rich mission sending agency. We have pioneering work around the world in spaces and places where there is no gospel-centered church. Think Robert De Niro, the movie Mission, a little bit of that, and a little bit of life in downtown Tokyo. So it's both in remote places and in very urban, first world kind of settings. We have remarkable people and a remarkable story. People who have sacrificed the kinds of lives most of us are familiar with here in North America in an effort to share the love of God with others in multiple ways, including business as mission. Something any one of you today might want to make a mental note of. We are a community of goers and senders. Our members are committed long-term ambassadors. They often speak multiple languages. They raise their children in foreign places, and they give their whole life, career, and degrees of normalcy that we would know for the sake of others in these foreign places. I'll share more about this when I talk about change. So in other words, I am a professional Christian. Every day I try to do what my alma mater admonished me to do, and some of my colleagues at this table share this alma mater status, which was the integration of faith and learning. And I would add vocation or a sense of calling. So the integration of faith and learning, and what is your vocation or your sense of calling in life? Penultimate, as a quote-unquote professional Christian, my boss, my CEO, my chairman of the board is the big guy, is God. Hence the title, Doing God's Business, Lessons in Leadership Change and the Impact of Gospel Patrons. And I can assure you here at the start that being a professional Christian and working in a faith-based organization, we have no problems. Every day is like unicorns and fairy dust. There are no egos, there are no performance reviews, there are no budget constraints, no data breaches. Everyone leaves staff meetings hugging and high-fiving one another. In fact, there's often spontaneous moments of loud singing in our Class A office building owned by the Kajoyan Commercial Real Estate Group, if you know the Kajoyans. We're at Halstead and 12 Mile. Any of you, all of you are welcome to visit us there at any time. When the singing and these outbursts happen, management, they call me. It is so thick and rich. In fact, manna from heaven is often delivered to us every day to our office at Farmington Hills, Halstead and 12 Mile by DHL, UPS, and Amazon Prime. Now I just lied to you. What would my boss say? I'm also on the board, as Adrian said, of CBRT and another organization called Revive Europe, focused on revival and renewal across European universities and the student world. I give direction to a small ministry venture called the Tatlow Society, named after an English man named Tissington Tatlow, who I'm trying to resurrect in history because he had such a profound influence on the student collegiate world 100 years ago. He was often referred to as the apostle to the student world. So I named this thing the Tatlow Society after this ancient friend of mine, Tissington Tatlow. And like many in Detroit, we do hustle harder here. We do. I have also my side hustles, but I won't get into that so much today. All of these things have informed and shaped who I am and what I like to talk to you about. Additionally, my ties to CBRT is directly and intentionally chosen because of my work and how it contrasts with the rest of my family. I'm not the only Christian in my family, but I am the only quote-unquote professional Christian. But my journey has given me tremendous admiration and respect for the skills, the work, and the way the rest of my family has served the chairman of the board, the King, who is Christ. And I'll say more about that in a minute. When Teresa asked me to speak, she asked me what was on my mind or what was on my heart. And straight away I said gospel patronage. Just straight away, because for the last several years, I've been absorbed in these stories that I've discovered through a website called gospelpatrons.org. And I'll talk about that at the very end. And by gospel patronage, I mean the way that business leaders have seen their work, their wealth creation, their time, their treasure, and talents for gospel-centered activity. But then I thought that this might not resonate with some of you in the room who are still climbing and crushing it with a utility purpose of advancing your own goals. So I added two other topics that were equally on my mind, which are leadership and change. So I'm going to quickly run through some of these things I've been learning and thinking about over the past 2 years in 30 minutes or less, and then tie a bow around that as I talk about gospel patronage at the tail end. Let's go to slide 1. So, lessons in leadership. Lesson number 1, leaders lead. Okay, leaders lead. They raise their hand, they step out, they strap on the helmet, they get on the field. They follow an inner compass towards things others may not see. And here's a leadership secret. If others aren't following you, you are not leading. Okay? You may need to edit, correct, mute, make a course correction in order to lead well. But if you think you're a leader and there's no one behind you following, you're probably not leading. I was asked to also speak a little bit about my faith journey, and these are some artifacts that I came up with in my childhood and really they are artifacts. What the things on the right on the yellow was from 5th grade. 5th grade, I was voted most popular kid in school. There's other things there too. The one thing that there's sort of an archaeological dig into my story that was most interesting to me was actually this. You can't see it from in the room, but it's this little stat right here. This is my high school, Rochester High School football senior year stat sheet that I pulled out of the archives. And where it's red right here, we played Rochester High School, played in I guess it would have been the fall of '88. Troy Athens, both of us were undefeated. So we're all Metro Detroiters. We know the area, Troy, Rochester, et cetera, Oakland County. And I had no less, you're going to love this, Tyler, no less than 36 tackles in that game. It's crazy. It's I'm like, is there an error in that? But I had 36 tackles. The next closest player on my team had 15 tackles less than me, and that was like the starting middle linebacker. And so when I think about that, and I think, what in my story, what in my life was God birthing in me as a fifth grader, as a pimple-faced 17-year-old at Rochester High School, that this is an artifact and or a indicator or a pointer towards. Some of the things that I think about when I look at something like that are, what did I learn then, or what was embodied in me then that applies to what I do today? What does it mean to make 36 tackles in a football game against an undefeated football team, where we went on and had an undefeated football season, which was great? In order to make tackles, you need to know the context. You need to know the direction. You need to know how to get there and get there quickly. You need to have passion and a certain degree of athleticism, of course. But I would say it is spatial awareness that distinguishes you from the pack. Oliver Jerriman and I here, sitting here in the front row, we coach girls soccer at Bloomfield Hills School in Bloomfield Hills, Bloomfield Christian School. And I've been coaching my daughters. She's now going into 7th grade. I've been coaching her since maybe she was in kindergarten, since she was 5 years old. And what I've noticed in her and in other girls is where they go from like sheep in a pasture to a sense of they know what they're doing, is just that it's skill, but it's awareness. It's just being aware, showing up and being aware of what is going on the field. And when that happens, exciting things can result in that. So those are some of my artifacts. This is not a Halloween costume. All right? That is actually me at 18 years old in the fall of 1989. Going back here, this is a letter from Coach George Perlis inviting me to football camp. But this little guy here was a little guy at Michigan State. And often how I played or didn't play was who I was. I found my identity as a football player. These are pictures of my family, our daughter Sophia, my wife Maria, and I recently in London, England. This is little Chuchi Wuchi, our little daughter, in Hyde Park when she was born there, and I was in grad school. But part of the reason I wanted to share with you this in my faith journey story is because, God just, He designs and equips all of us in different ways and with different skills. And there are these artifacts that are maybe some signs and indicators of who I am, who I was, what I do now. But as I indicated, my being a professional Christian, if you will, contrasted with my family. My wife is J.P. Morgan financial advisor. So if you need any financial advice, she's over here at table number 1. My older brother there works for General Motors. My dad worked for GM. My younger brother there, who went to Michigan State and played football there, he's director of planning at a consulting firm. And my mom, she was the head corporate concierge and head of catering at Budget Rental Car. And then my grandparents here, there's an older picture of them there, and these are my mom's parents. In a lot of ways, I was thinking about this too. My grandmother, in many ways, and grandfather were patrons. They paid for my Wheaton education. They patronaged my education. And they were small business owners in Detroit. They owned lots of different businesses and a restaurant at Grand River and Schaefer, a little diner, still there today. They own little movie theaters, and they provide candy and popcorn to all the theaters in like the 40s and 50s and 60s. This is our daughter, Sophia. And this picture down here is my wife, Maria, and our friend, Sarah Bruel, who's the executive director of Revive Europe. And we're at Wheaton College, and we're looking at the Mission Alumni Wall, in which proudly my name is on that wall. So I went from this kid at 18 years old thinking my identity is football to really eventually in a short amount of time saying, what is my life really all about and what am I living for? And I want to live my life for the Lord. So I think probably most of my childhood and most of my life, I was this kid up here. I was just launching into life. I do have a picture. My grandparents had a home on Orchard Lake. We had these massive willow trees on the water, and we had a rope swing that was tied up about as high as this ceiling. You would climb into the tree to then launch out of the tree into the lake. And I couldn't find that picture, but I found this one. I thought that's pretty close indication of how I grew up. So, lesson number 1, leaders lead. Lesson 2, 3, and 4, leaders help and serve others. Leaders stay charactered. Christian leaders are secure in Jesus. Let me say a few things about that. So leaders help and serve others. Jesus famously said, "If you want to be first, be last. Be a servant to all." You may have all the natural talent in the world. You may have the pedigree, the competency, the degrees, and the skill sets to climb and to crush it. But if you cannot serve others, you won't go as far as you could. And what I especially want to emphasize is that we serve others well by helping them find their calling and their gifting. It's not just about setting up the chairs or breaking down a room, serving in those ways, but what I think really animates leadership in the quality of helping and serving others is one's ability to look into a person's life and say, this is what I think you're called to do. This is what I think you're gifted at doing. And let me bring you into and towards your own promised land. Calling them, sometimes dragging them and encouraging them higher and further into their true identity. And I believe Jesus did this with his disciples. I got a long quote I'm going to read by C.S. Lewis. Any questions before I go on? Quickly, anything. Gives me a chance to take a drink. C.S. Lewis put it this way. He said, "It is a serious thing to live in a society of possible gods and goddesses, to remember that the dullest, most uninteresting person you can talk to, who may be to the left or to the right of you this morning, I don't know, may one day be a creature which, if you say it now, you would struggle not to be tempted to worship that person. Or else a horror and a corruption such as you now meet, if at all, only in a nightmare. All day long, we are in some degree helping each other to one or the other of these destinations. It is the light of these overwhelming possibilities, it is with the awe and the circumspection proper to them that we should conduct all our dealings with one another, all friendships, all lovers, all play, all politics. There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, art, and civilization itself, these are mortal things. Their life is to our life but a gnat. But it is immortal. It is immortals who we joke with, work with, marry, snub, and exploit. Immortal horror or everlasting splendor. That's what I mean by serving others and calling them up, calling them higher. Leaders stay charactered. I'm just going to check my slides here. Okay, leaders stay charactered. Leaders stay charactered. We don't just need talented, intelligent, or high capacity, high quality leaders. There's lots of rotten leaders. And why is it that the rotten leader is always the last one to know? There's lots of rotten leaders with those qualities it's actually, I go to Lifetime Fitness on Telegraph and Long Lake, and there's a lot of Chaldean Christian business owners there. And there's a lot of other nationalities, and there's a lot of old guys that waddle into the schwitz with me. We have our executive workout, Josh knows what I'm talking about. He sees me in Lifetime. The executive workout is the sauna. So we waddle in there together, and one guy said to me, he said, all this stuff that we're seeing in politics these days, back in Eastern Europe, you know what we called that? We called it corruption. We just called it corruption. We call it so many other things, but it's just corruption. So we need character leaders who aren't stepping around or over others as a badge of honor. It's not honorable. We need holy, virtuous, noble leaders, and that's all I have to say about that. Number 2, Christian leaders are secure in Jesus. In the Old Testament, Abraham, Moses, Aaron, Jacob, and Israel were confident in their covenant with God. In the New Testament, our confidence is in the covenant relationship we have through Christ. Were you giving me a sign? What, I got 5 minutes? I have 5 minutes? I have 5 minutes. All right. All right, we're just gonna stay over here. We're just gonna live over here for the next 5 minutes. Forget about the notes. Okay. So leaders in practice. Here's what this means. Because we got 2 more topics we got to cover really quickly. Leaders decide things. Leaders manage culture. Leaders communicate. Leaders set the course. Leaders get things done. Here's the secret. If most of your time is spent managing things, you won't have the energy to lead people well. And that's a really great illustration. You can get this slide deck from CBRT if you want to drill into this stuff some more. So topic number 2, change. So this is a change as a study in leadership. Got that? All right. I have now 2 minutes. Listen. These are real machines. These are real machines that are literally a mile from one another. Later today, I'm going to this warehouse, and I'm trying to help the man who owns this machine and a lot others decide, is he going to sunset and do a strip out, or is he going to sell the business to someone else? This machine worked. It was successful. Down the road, they're making this one, okay? Like, I celebrate this. But if you're not changing, this is the struggle, the turbulent waters. There's an old way and a new way. There's the push of the situation and a pull of the new, but the habits of the present and the anxiety of the new solution often pulls you towards the old things. So, can you get that, Roger? Thanks. Try to. Change means disruption, it means collaboration, it means stewardship of resources, change means innovation. Couple things, dogs don't hunt. That's actually my dog. He was a golden retriever guide dog, and he made a career change. He retired. Okay, sometimes dogs don't hunt anymore. If you're running a business and you're like, why isn't this working? Well, sometimes dogs don't hunt anymore, and you got to change. If you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with other people. I love this quote. Change means stewardship of resources. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat, from The Art of War. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And the resources are people. People are your most treasured resources. People, obviously finances, what's in your hands, etc. And of course it means innovation, and I'll say something about just skunk working it real quickly. So one of the ways in which, and this is a slide from a McKinsey study that I just absolutely love, and it's post-COVID companies and how there's these key principles of who we are, how we operate, and how we grow. We got to just pass that through. This is the last topic, but let me just go back here really quick and say something about innovation and change. So Send is a story-rich 78-year-old organization. It started post-World War II. There was Dwight Eisenhower and a senator from Ohio named, I think it was Robert Taft, One was a isolationist. The other just came back as a war hero and discovered the world. And that debate then continues to be a debate in the United States. And it was presented to the American church, and the mission enterprise started because of post-World War II. And it was successful, and it's now 78 years old. And a lot of things 78 years old just don't move as fast as they did. In fact, so much of the mission enterprise today it supports the enterprise, not the mission. It's inflated. There's over 900 organizations kind of like Send all across the country. And not unlike churches and faith-based colleges and universities, organizations are also sunsetting and dying and closing up shop. So we're skunk working Send International. And we are being I'll come back to the slide in a second. We are being these things: disruptive, collaborative, stewarding our resources, and trying to be innovative. Any of that true in business? Yeah, right? Okay, taking it home, Teresa. Here we go. This is it. So then what is gospel business and the impact of gospel patronage? Cornelius Van Til, farm kid from Indiana, went to Calvin College, now Calvin University on the other side of the state. Eventually went on to Princeton University, got a PhD, was a theologian and philosopher at Calvin, and he said this. I love this. He said, God must reach down and save dead men in their trespasses and sins. You do not heal a dead man. You resurrect him. Man is not drowning. He is not sick. He's not sick. He's dead. Dead is dead. You cannot throw him a rope. A dead man can't grab anything. So God's business is the saving of souls. He loves you. Let me say it again. He loves you. He loves you. Don't complicate it. The Bible says that Jesus died to set men and women free from sin, death, and the devil. We have what theologians call Christus Victor, the victory in Christ over the whole universe. He's won the victory. So what does it mean then to patronage these things? Gospel patronage is not merely passing the plate. It's not praying and spraying with money if you've got a lot of money. It's not altruistic, philanthropic kind of agnosticism. In other words, like ambivalent just giving with no real thought to it. A gospel patron is someone who has self-examined their time, their treasure, and talent and committed its temporal use for eternal gospel purposes. Does anybody know who this is? Mark Green, Hobby Lobby. Anybody know who this is? Gives it away a little there. Truett Cathy. Anybody know who this is? A little harder. No. Good. Hey, I like that. I should have put a picture of Tatlow. No, John Thornton. John Thornton was a London merchant who supported the ministry of John Newton, who was the slave trader and who wrote the book Amazing Grace. Before CBRT, before C12, before Truth at Work, there was John Thornton funding all kinds of business gatherings all around the city of London. This is William Tyndale. This is Humphrey Monmouth. Humphrey Monmouth went to jail for William Tyndale. He funded William Tyndale translating the Bible. We all have Bibles today in English because of William Tyndale. This guy funded him. This lady, she was a force of nature. Selina Hastings, she was the Countess of Huntington. In the United States, there was two great awakenings, and one was largely influenced by a man named George Whitefield. She funded George Whitefield to come to the United States as an evangelist. This guy, Sir John Lang, was in construction, and he died with 371 pounds in his bank account. Gave millions and millions of pounds away. So these guys are illustrations of these gospel patrons, and this is the last slide. Gospel patronage is following a calling. It's not passing the plate. It's not altruistic agnosticism, just giving just to give. It's not a guilt trip either. And you know what? There's a guy I know in this town, very successful, very wealthy. He's been in this room. He's not here this morning. Who carries in his pocket, he showed it to me, all his good deeds. Let me show you what I've funded and what I've done. He's trusting in his list. It's not that either. It's not like if I just do enough things and what is enough and I'm not sure. It's following this deep sense of what are you called to? What do you care about? It's participation, partnership. It's having impact. It's friendship. These relationships were friendships. They were, one thing could not happen without the other. And finally, it's joyful. Like there is something beautiful as a business leader coming alongside a ministry and patronaging it, and it may not just be financial. It may be time and talent. Send International, other ministries, other organizations, churches, they need subcommittee members, committee members, board members. You all have skills and abilities that these organizations need. So you might want to just say, hey, I come to you with this talent, and I feel called, and I love what you guys do. How can I volunteer? How can I be a part of it? That's why I'm a part of CBRT. That's why I'm a part of Revive Europe. So finally, Jesus said this. He said, it's harder for a rich man or woman to enter the kingdom of heaven. In fact, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, because where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And I think that that's sort of the final takeaway as it relates to the experiences that I've had in life from the beginning to today, you know, learning about leadership, being a part of an organization that's going through lots of change, and then thinking and caring a lot over the last several years about this idea of gospel patronage and how can I participate in things of an ROI. You all know that language? What is your eternal ROI? There is nothing less impressive to me than great wealth with no sense of the brevity of life and that eternity is coming. I am so underwhelmed by it. So with that, I leave you. Think about what is your ROI? Does it have eternal value? Thank you very much, Adrian.